and welcome to another episode of the Building Better Men podcast from LifeBuilders. This is the show where we aim to provide you with education, entertainment, encouragement, and enlightenment. This particular episode is quite sensitive in the fact that we're talking about the death of a loved one, made even more poignant because we're talking about the loss of a child. How do you, as a parent, deal with this level of loss? How do you come to terms with the reality of such a tragedy? Glen is someone I've known for a number of years, and some weeks ago we spoke about the opportunity for him to share some of his journey after his daughter died suddenly in her sleep. And we caught up a few days ago, and we'd like to share the conversation with you. We hope that his story will help somebody out there, even if it's just one person who may be dealing with something similar. And we've also dropped some scriptures and links in the show notes, so if you feel that you've been impacted by the conversation, by the contents of the conversation, then we hope that some of these links to scriptures will be helpful for you to begin to move forward in your journey. God bless you. So, we're joined today by Glen, a good friend of mine from some time back. We've not seen each other we were just talking a little while ago, I think, possibly 15 years, probably in terms of
years, yeah,
properly seeing each other. Even though this is only virtual as well, so I've still not seen you in the flesh for a good while. But today we will be speaking a little bit about bereavement, specifically bereavement of a child, and Glen will be sharing some of his story very shortly. But before we go there, Glen, do you just want to tell us a little bit about you, your background, who you are?
Okay, thank you, Junior. So
That's cool.
I'm Glen. I was born in the UK, and was fortunate to spend my formative years in the Caribbean. Came from a strong religious background. Grew up in Church for the Prophecy, which I spent, my formative years. Was fortunate to come back to the UK. Did my studies and went on to practice as a surveyor and other forms of sort of other businesses and ventures. And so played.
No, carry on.
No, that's fine.
Okay.
I was just going to say, I supported, certain, in church, sort of played. Was fortunate to play for a few bands, locally, and so that's
yeah. That's cool. Thank you. Yeah, and an awesome keyboard player, I should say. I should have added that at the start. Very, very good. So, Glen, I can see behind you there a beautiful picture of your, beautiful daughter Chanel, and
thank you.
It's a heartbreaking story, and every time, even when we spoke on the phone a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I feel it. Maybe because I have a daughter around about the same age that Chanel was when she passed. But can you tell us a little bit about Chanel first of all? What kind of young lady was she?
Yes, yeah. So I always say, for me, Chanel was my world, and I know it sounds a very strange sort of thing to say, but it goes without saying she was my daughter, and Chanel had this smile that if you would go into a room, it would really just light up the room. She had this loving, caring approach. One of the things that I loved about Chanel was just how she cared for people, a compassion for people, and she would embrace anyone. I think one of the things that she certainly taught me was really not to be judgmental. And, and that was one of the things that she didn't just speak about, but she literally lived it, And yeah, she was just a person that was full, was full of life. She had the most amazing dreams, aspirations, from a very young age. She loved to sing. She loved to dance. She had probably about 5 or 6 different instruments that she could play them all, but she would have a go. She'd have a
Yeah.
go at anything. Family gatherings. She would be the one that would gather all her cousins, and
Wow.
they would always put on a performance, whether it be singing, acting, and so she was really the life and the soul of the family, and so sadly missed
Yeah.
by all, really. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing as he was talking there how he said something about she'd taught you not to be judgmental. I think it's
Yes.
amazing how often our children do teach us things that we maybe hadn't seen in us before. God
Absolutely.
uses them for
Absolutely.
so
Yes.
many different ways. Um,
Absolutely.
so I mean, sounds like an amazing daughter, an amazing human being.
Thank
Um,
you.
um, and I know this will be a little sensitive because
No.
it's always going to be difficult, as you know.
Absolutely.
Can you share a
Absolutely.
little bit about what happened on the morning or the day that you received the news of her passing, that she was no longer with us?
Yeah. So I think it primarily was a journey coming up to that. So, Chanel had done extremely well. She had just completed her GCSEs. So she did extremely well. So I decided to plan a family holiday with her and my sister and her family. So we went on holiday abroad, and it was really a celebration of not just her, but us being together and us getting to this. Life has been was a journey,
Mm,
and to get to this stage was a real milestone for Chanel, even herself.
yeah.
I remember she was really looking forward to this stage of her life, and one incident was of a reminder of that was her getting her national insurance card. And I just remember her crying, just I was like, well, what's wrong? And she was like, Dad, you don't understand. This is, it's like I feel like my life has just, begun,
Oh wow.
and this will open up doors and let me do the things which she was so passionate about.
Hmm.
So we went on holiday. She came back, so she was with me, and her mum was missing her. So she decided that she would go and spend a couple of days with mom. So she was fine.
Hmm.
When we came back from holiday, it was quite a poignant moment. I'll just go back a little bit where,
Yeah.
she had now really thought, right now, this is the year we've always wanted to go to Jamaica.
Hmm.
And so we were literally planning that the next trip would be to Jamaica, and what we were going to do and how we were going to, really. And Chanel was such a focused person.
Hmm.
She did her work experience, and I keep going back just a little bit to
That's
build up
fine.
to that,
Yeah.
And she did her work experience at Walsall Council. She
Hmm.
wanted to study law. She was passionate about helping people, and after a work experience, they just saw that there was something special about her and offered a position.
Hmm.
Um, and that was kind of unique at her age, because she would only have been 16.
Yeah.
So, a combination of all of this, she was really had this drive, and she was really excited. We came back, and then she decided to change her school. She used to go to Highclere Clear School.
Hmm.
She herself found a course that did a core subject was law,
Yeah.
close to being Sutton, and she started. It was her first week in school, and she was healthy. She was fine. She was very health conscious, so she'd always watch what she eats, exercise, and yeah. And so she went to her mom on. So this was the second week of her starting school, and she complained of a. She just had it. She complained that she had a headache, like on the first day, and so we said okay, she wouldn't go to school. Um, so we communicate every day. So
Yeah.
she said okay, the headache because it's gone now. She's feeling much better, and so she says okay, I'll just rest up, and so maybe you're overdoing it, and so and the on the Saturday I was working away, and she rang again to say that Dad, don't worry, literally she said, don't worry, the headaches come back, and I've gone to the hospital, but they're sending me home. So as soon as I got back, I went to see her, and we spoke, and youngsters sometimes they don't eat right, and so and
Yeah.
you just think, okay, maybe just need to eat and rest, a little bit more. Um, but we sat there and we spoke, and we said she again said, okay, she'll stay just over the weekend as it was the Saturday. So
Yeah.
on the Monday she'll come back and start resume school, and so we left. And the most poignant thing for me is, and I'm really thankful for that, is that each time we'd meet, each time she was leaving, I don't even want to use a ritual. I'd always embrace her and kiss her on her forehead.
Yeah.
And I remember embracing her and kissing her on her forehead and saying, I'll see you Monday. So Monday she'll be coming back, and for this for the first time, it's like I hugged her and kissed her, and then she kind of, kids would just like hug,
Yeah.
and it was just a little bit longer than usual.
Yes.
And I remember just sitting in the car for a while. Didn't say anything. She was just looking out. Didn't say anything. Nothing. Um, and then she says, "Okay, Dad, I'll see you. I'll see you on Monday." And it's like, "Okay, that's fine." Um, and the this was the Saturday night, and so and um, on the I was meant to go out on that Saturday night, and I remember I just couldn't. I was at home, and this was the build up to it. Now I remember just being at home and sitting on the sofa, and I just couldn't move. I just could not. And I normally, if I commit to something, I'll always do my very best to honor that commitment. And I remember getting phone calls and saying, "Glen, are you coming?" And I couldn't. I literally sat on my sofa the almost the whole night,
Right.
and I didn't know things. I didn't know what was wrong. I didn't know. I just, it's just this odd sort of
Yeah.
feeling that I had, and then the Sunday morning, a friend of mine rang me. In fact, the person I was meant to go out with, my friend, he rang me in the morning, and he was just, asking if everything was okay, and so, and why didn't I? And I says, I was just saying I didn't know what was wrong, and apologizing for not um, turning up, attending, and then I was getting some missed calls, some calls, but it was withheld numbers. So sometimes, you get numbers, and so
Yeah.
really didn't. And it was early in the morning. I didn't really pay much mind. And then I had a call from my brother-in-law, which I recognised the number, and sort of answered the call, and it was literally that was the call,
Wow.
that your daughter has died, and I can't. from that moment, up till now, even now, I can't fathom how I really got to my house in
Yeah.
where she was really. It was one of the, well, the most devastating
Mm-hmm.
news that I had, and that any parent should ever have. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just been a journey from there, and the journey of losing my world, going back to
Yeah.
the word that I used
Mm-hmm.
initially about that she was my world.
Yeah.
Is then the journey began of dealing with the loss
Yeah.
of my
Yeah.
world.
I mean, I can't even imagine.
Mm,
I can't even imagine how that feels. I mean, I think for anybody that's lost somebody close,
mm,
particularly if it's a parent or a friend, maybe even a sibling. I don't know.
absolutely.
I think
Yeah.
to lose a child, I think is probably one of the most
Yeah.
devastating.
Yeah.
Not wanting to compare, but
Mm,
it's I can only imagine how that could have felt
mm.
for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, you said you didn't even know how you got to then come back to Birmingham to
Yeah.
sort of deal with it. How, I mean, in that journey, I guess from the passing of Chanel, obviously the whole media thing around it and
Yes.
all of that, because it was in the papers and everything, obviously
That's
because of
right.
the
Yeah.
circumstances.
Yeah.
How how did you, or how do you think you managed through that, particularly from a Christian perspective? The questions in your head about you know faith and God, and the questions, well, why? Why did you allow?
Yes, for
What,
sure.
what kind of questions went through your head? How did it challenge you as a believer?
Yes, for sure. For sure. I think the first question in terms of the media. So, I think I was really fortunate to have a strong family um, support and close friend
Yeah.
support, and in a sense there was a lot of media attention, and they could have been more because they wanted to. They really were trying to get to me, but at the time, my family and myself, I mean, I was not really in a position to make real major decisions at
Hmm.
that time. My focus was really about, I felt that I wanted to give my daughter the best send off that I could possibly do. I'd rather not be thinking about that, but that at the
Hmm.
time, so I was shielded from the media, and so and we sort of put out a few statements,
Hmm.
and we'd made an arrangement with a few of the media that when I feel that I'm at a place where I can put out a statement, then I'll do that.
Hmm.
So dealing with the media at that stage was it was doable and manageable, and as I said, managed by the people that were more so by my family and close friends. In regards to my faith, I know this is a Christian
Hmm.
interview, and so, but I will be real, and I
Yeah,
will be
please.
and as honest and transparent
Hmm.
as possible. And I think my journey started. Uh, just one of the things that I happened in the course of me losing my daughter was my company at the time were very, very supportive, and they provided me with counselling. And I think that's one of the things that we tend to, as a in our culture, or even as black men, think we're kind of beyond that. We kind of think, no, we'll pray in the church, we'll deal with that. But I did accept the counselling, of course,
Yeah.
which was a real positive thing in the end result of the journey that I went on. In regards to my faith, it really, Junior, I really struggled
Mm-hmm.
with my faith. And you alluded to it earlier about, well, why?
Mm-hmm.
And that is the first question
Yeah.
that you ask. And it's also part of the counseling that they say, there's different phases within grieving. There's
Mm-hmm.
different, and that's one of the phases, like why you blame yourself. Me as a,
Mm-hmm.
I blame myself. It's like what could I have done different?
Mm-hmm.
And that sometimes sits with me even after 11 years. I
Mm-hmm.
do sometimes.
So to
You
interrupt, Glenn,
still,
I guess
yes,
just for those that will be watching or listening to this, 'cause I guess we probably should have mentioned a little bit about the cause of Chanel's death. So
yes,
this was a
that's right.
a,
Yes,
a heart condition and not been diagnosed at that point. Is that right?
yes. That's correct. So it's an undiagnosed heart condition,
Yeah.
cardiomyopathy,
Mm-hmm.
was what she was diagnosed with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
So moving back to like your question to God, and why this whole grieving process, and trying to understand why God had allowed this to happen. How did he manage and get through that process? And you mentioned he's still, even now he's still something that you have to revisit, I guess.
absolutely, absolutely. And so the journey of the questions and why, then it didn't only become a question and why, because oftentimes you don't get the answer.
Mm.
So you can ask a question, but if you don't get the answer, then you kind of make your own
Yeah.
answer up. You make your own, you deal with it the way how you think um, it's deserved
Mm-hmm.
for it to happen, because you don't get the answer at that particular time that you're asking. And so at this time when I was asking the questions and not getting the answers, for me, well, in a nutshell, I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't do this. It's beyond me, and it's
Mm-hmm.
beyond my capability and
Mm-hmm.
comprehension to have grown up and given my life and trusted in, um, God, not only
Yeah.
God within church and
Mm-hmm.
religion, and oftentimes I think um, these things are put, they're there, and they are a shield, and they're meant to be a shield,
Mm-hmm.
but we kind of lean so much on that we sometimes think that we're invincible.
Yeah.
And sometimes that is a little bit harder to deal with when you think that you are protected,
Mm-hmm.
and then you realize that, gosh, this protection mechanism has just failed me in the
Mm-hmm.
most, the worst way
Yeah.
possible, really. And so that really shook me to the core. It
Mm.
was a real challenge, and as I said, during the grieving process, um, I call that the dark stage or place that I was in. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
dark. It was a very dark place, and
Describe what that was like, because that in fact was
yeah.
my next question. Was going to be,
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
what was the darkest
Right.
part of that journey? So describe what that was like, to be in this dark place. How did that feel, and how did you manage to do that in terms of your
Yeah.
mental well-being? Even being able
Yeah.
to get back to work, and
Right.
somehow move on in life.
Move
How
on.
difficult was that in that period?
Yes. So I'll start off by saying this dark place for me was very comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
because I felt that guilt of feeling that you're a parent and you should protect your child. That's what parents do. They're supposed to be there for their child. So as I'm in this dark place, it became almost comfortable. It was like when it's comfortable, it gets darker and darker.
Yeah.
You talk about mental, so it deals with not only the mental issues, but the place of where and was for me one of the hardest part of it. I was really, and I didn't ever think that I would ever feel that way, because I would like to think I'm sort of a positive person, but that dark place where I felt like I no longer wanted or deserved to be here. And that was the real rock bottom
Yeah.
of where I got to, where it was like, okay, this is it. There can't be a resolve. There's no answers. There's that this is my life, and going back to the word I said about, yes, I believed in God, yes, I'm a Christian and so, but Chanel she's my daughter, but she's
Yeah.
my what,
Yeah.
and so when your world is no longer there,
Yeah.
then
What's left?
there is nothing,
Yeah.
left. And so my existence just felt, it just felt, well, it was needed, you know what I mean? It was senseless, it was useless, it was
Yeah.
just, yes. So, I had to the counselling. So I mentioned it, alluded earlier to about, having counselling,
Yeah.
and it did affect my health physically. So I was off from work, and I had a couple of businesses as well at the time that I was that I had, and it just the whole thing just became overwhelming, and so I wasn't at work. I had no control over my business. I literally had no control over me. I was just existing.
Yeah.
And one of the things, as I'm in this real dark place, I remember at the beginning when Chanel had just passed away. One of her friends' mother gave me a book, and
Yeah.
it was called The Shack
Yes.
by Paul Young. And at the time, I really just put the book on the shelf, my side table, my bedside table, and it was just there. I thought the last thing I really want to do is read a book or so, and I couldn't understand. I didn't really give it much thought, to be honest. Um, and it was there, and so as I'm in this real dark place and feeling comfortable now,
Yeah.
and they talk about this in counselling, about that it's part of the journey. I remember one night, just contemplating, about my existence, and really kind of thinking, well, how do you get rid of this existence?
Yeah.
What, how do you begin to even, do that? But it was a real thought.
Yes.
It was a
Yes.
real thought, and it became my reality. It became my reality, and that to me was, it really, I mean, thinking back about it now, it's, it really gets to me that, that life had taken me, this, you know, what life had bestowed upon me had taken me to this place. And, as Christians, we talk about life, giving life, and having life, and having
Yeah.
life more abundantly. And now I'm at the stage where I'm like, I don't, nothing meant anything to me.
Yeah.
Nothing, no career, no business, nothing, nothing at all. And I just remember on there's this one that I my eyes, as I'm in bed, my eyes just glanced over at this on this book
Yeah.
on my bedside table. And it's strange because normally I just put book like in a bookshelf, or put it away or so. But it's on my bedside table, and I remember just thinking, like looking over, and it's like, what is that book about? And it's kind of a strange name, word, title,
Yeah.
the shack. And I just went on to go back to the start place, and but my mind just kept going back to this book. I remember just picking the book up, and and I read the content, the introduction of the book, and I kid you not, I read that I read that, but I haven't read. I didn't, considering the place where I was at. I just kept reading and reading,
Wow.
and this book, apart from amongst all the other things,
Yeah.
I'd hate to miss out my family support, the prayers of the Christians, and the community,
Yeah.
my neighbors. It was really um, just a real collective of different people. I could never have gone through this without the support, and I'd
Yeah.
never want to do an interview or say anything without mentioning all the people that have been kind of integral in me getting to this place. But this book was, I would say, was the start of that journey. And I remember reading The Shack, and I just remember kind of starting to my mind started to change a little bit. I just kind of started to feel like, okay, my focus was then on Chanel,
Yeah.
the legacy that she had left at the age of 16. She had touched so many people's lives, and sometimes people say, well, I don't really know why the media was so had really published it. But when I think back and I think about the lives that she had touched, and an example of this, I remember. I'm not. We were when we were on holiday abroad. I remember she had it was blackberries those
Yeah.
days, and they had this ping thing, and
Yes.
it just kept pinging, it kept pinging, and I was like, and so we were in the foyer this evening. We just relaxing in the foyer and
Yeah.
waiting to go out for a meal. I was like, why is you're on holiday? Why is your phone pinging? Why is your BlackBerry pinging so much? And she was such, she was very private in the sense of um, keeping people's information, and so because people entrusted her. Um, and she was like, well, Dad, you don't understand. You don't understand. People entrusted me, people. And she reluctantly, and I was like, I was a little bit, I'm not sure. And I remember she reluctantly showed me a few messages.
Yeah.
And I really, that's when the magnitude of who she was and what she was about kind
Wow.
of hit me. And there were messages like, and we can't cope without this is not even an exile. She was like, you have to come back. And I was like, for a 16-year-old, you shouldn't really be carrying that sort of burden. But she did it, and she
Yeah.
did it without anyone even knowing.
Yes.
And so after reading the book, I started to think about Chanel and Chanel's life and how she lived. And I spoke about earlier about how she embraced people
Yes.
and anyone, and how she taught me not to really be judgmental, just embrace people for who they are. And so these thoughts started to come back to me, and so her legacy started to be the driving force to my recovery. So
Right.
it started from the shack, then thinking about moving the focus from me, because it was
Yeah.
me then, it was all about me, to her. And then it was then, what would Chanel want me to do? And I know
Yes.
it sounds a little bit of a cliche, but for me, that was a reality. What really would she want me to do? And so on this journey coming out of this dark place, I had to make some real, decisions at the time. Got rid of businesses that I had, concentrated on, started to focus on the things that I had, I could take a little bit more control over.
Yes.
And and then the media, who was all this time waiting for me to give a statement out. I decided, one of the things that I decided as I was coming out, that whatever happens after this, and this was some of the decisions that I made in terms of, even from a business perspective, that I want to make a difference in people's
Right.
lives, because that's who Chanel was, and that's how she lived her life. She was always making a difference in people's lives.
Yeah.
And that was my commitment. That was the journey, the beginning of the journey. Coming out of that is making a decision. So I decided to do a memorial concert
Yeah.
for her at the Birmingham Town Hall. And my the media company, it's so ironic, and in that period they contacted me again, and you know just in that period, and you know asked me if I wanted to give a statement. I was like, and I says, yeah, okay, I think I'm ready to
Yeah.
give a statement. But the statement was really about Chanel and Chanel's legacy, and how how I moved on with her legacy to make a difference. And the memorial concert was a twofold thing. So it was really, you know, doing a memorial for her and her life and her legacy, but also the start of a relationship that I started with the Heart Foundation.
Right.
So all the proceeds from the concert went to the Heart Foundation, and
That's
Cry, which is
the British Heart Foundation. Is
the
that the same
British
thing?
Heart Foundation.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. And Cry, which is cardiac arrest in the young.
Right.
And they were actually at the concert as well. So, and the newspapers, quite a few of the newspapers, then published the articles based on around that, my journey, and around that. And yeah, and we continued the relationship with the British Heart Foundation.
Yeah.
We I did some events with them. I did some talks about my experience and my journey. I was fortunate to go to the research center, and where they do the research on the Heart Foundation. I was fortunate to meet the professor who heads up the research in the Heart Foundation,
Yeah.
and they're doing it in Oxford. They're doing a great job there, and as always, all as well, fortunate to meet the patron of the British Heart Foundation, which is Ferguson.
Same with Ferguson.
Yes, that's correct. Yes,
Okay.
yes, and so this journey continues, and hence why I'm able now to sit with you, and just to
Yeah.
share
Yeah.
this journey of where I am now.
Yeah. Just on the subject of British Heart Foundation, I think particularly the condition that Chanel suffered from.
Yeah.
Is there anything or any sort of key message that you would want people to be aware of? And I know you're not a medical professional, but from
Yes,
the work you've done with them, are there any key messages that you think people should be aware of, or maybe signs they should look out for, that maybe should prompt them to maybe see the doctor just for reassurance or assurance?
yes, yeah, really good question. So, one of the things that I found out about this art condition, that it is often comes through your genetics. So it might be a family, a trait, a defect within your family, and so they can actually do a test to identify whether you have this trait. And so I would, and I'm glad you said I'm not medical, so I'm
Yes,
not
yes.
giving you an advice from a medical point of view, but I would encourage anyone that's had anyone that's passed away previously with a heart condition to then go and have these tests, a test done to see if there are any traits within your genes. And as I said, it's we had it done. The family members had it done. We were fortunate again. The professor from the Heart Foundation actually did it. He said he'd wanted to do it personally, and so he did that for us. So, I just encourage anyone that previous or any heart feeling, and the thing about a heart having an heart defect, it doesn't always start from your heart.
Yeah.
So for my daughter, she had a headache, and so if you're not feeling well or you're having repetitive symptoms, then I would encourage you to go and get it checked out. What I'd also encourage is that if you're feeling persistently not well, and this is one of the things going back to Chanel, sometimes, I realize that the NHS is overworked. They have a lot there, and sometimes, if you just say I've got a headache, oftentimes they might just look for the headache, why you
Yeah.
have. But I think sometimes it's within our interest to just push a little bit further. Try and, if you think that it's not just a normal, just a normal head,
Yeah.
there's not such thing as a normal headache, but just a headache, then
Yes,
probably
yes.
push a little bit further.
Yeah.
Ask, is there anything else they can do? Ask them to do additional checks, and so just to eliminate it, really. The unfortunate thing about this is that it can go undetected. And I know, like in the Euro football, there was a footballer who
Yeah.
collapsed on,
Yeah. Yeah.
and there's been several, and it often comes with different types of things that can obviously trigger it. There's not just one way of having a heart attack also.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course.
So yeah, anything that you feel, I would encourage you. Anything that you feel is not going right, with your body, then you please get it checked out. And as I said, our culture as well. I know, in particularly men, we tend to shy away from the doctors or the hospitals, and we think we're men, and we think we're a little
Invincible.
bit we're invincible,
We can
and
manage it. Yes.
we can absolutely, and we pray about it. And I'm definitely not knocking prayer. Prayer changes things, but yeah, sometimes we've got to be wise. We only have this one body, and so we have to ensure that it's we look after it, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that, Glenn. And I'll just reiterate again for anybody listening or watching that Glenn is not a doctor. He's not a medical professional. This is advice he's given from his personal experience and what he's picked up from some of the work he's been privileged to see with the British Heart Foundation. So yeah, just to reiterate, any doubts, any concerns, see your GP about those concerns. In wrapping up then, Glenn, coming back to your whole experience now in terms of the bereavement, the grieving process, and I guess particularly from the perspective of being a father who's lost a child, a daughter, your world, as you put it. What kind of encouragement, or what kind of encouragement could you give to anybody that's listening or watching that may have experienced something very similar, particularly in losing a child? What could you say to them to give them some hope?
Yes, for sure. I think the first thing is not to suffer in silence. And I think oftentimes, again, as men, we tend not to speak as much as ladies would. You know, we're very, again, you know, we feel that we can carry this, and it's often this silence that, and certainly with my journey, it was this dark place was a silent dark place.
Yeah.
And although I had, and fortunate for me, I had counselling. Had I not had the counselling, again, maybe it would have been a different outcome, because in that counselling, I had no choice but to speak.
Yeah.
So I can imagine if I'm alone dealing with this internally, what that could potentially do to me. So the first thing is really don't suffer in silence. Speak about it. If you can get help, counselling, maybe a minister or someone in your church, or a confidant, someone you can confide in, who you can speak to and you trust them, and that, you know, you're the way, you know, information is such a, you know, it's a valuable thing, isn't it? You know, you can, and someone can get information, it can be twofold. They can take it and use it to their advantage, or they can, you know, be trusted with it.
Yeah.
And so speak about it. You know, I would also encourage them to you know, as you're going through the journey, you know, your journey. And one thing I've learned is that everyone grieves differently. There is no just one way of grieving, but try and understand you and what you're going through, and just see, kind of think, well, for me, as I said earlier, then the focus then sort of shifted from me and then to my daughter. And I found that was really, it was comforting to me to then take the focus of me and put it on her. And sometimes we forget about the loved one and the loved one that we're grieving on, and we put the focus on us. So sometimes think about the memories. And this is one thing that I'm so grateful for, was that the memories I had, the chance to create with my daughter, with Chanel. I was fortunate in the sense that I could pick her up from school. Most even I know a lot of men can't do because we work late, and you know, but I was fortunate to do that. And I, you know, every evening from school would be a conversation about how a day was. You know, and we communicated really well. You know, we had a great relationship. And so the memories, and those are some of the things that really keep me even today, those memories that we created. And so try and sometimes think about the memories, all those things that you did when they were alive, and not so much on, and you know, every day is a different day, but on where you're at and how you're feeling. So that's, you know, I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Glenn. Thank you again for sharing, Glenn. It's never an easy thing talking about the loss of a loved one, particularly when it's a child. It's heart-wrenching, to say the very least. So I thank you for your candidness, your openness, and your willingness to share your heart. Really, really do appreciate that. And I'm sure, you know, 100% sure that there'll be many people listening to this who will listen to this, who will get great comfort from hearing your story, how you've got through. And it's good to hear that the realness of it. You know, it's as you mentioned earlier. Yes, it's good to pray. It's good to have the church, but when the rubber hits the road, sometimes when I say that's not enough in our humanity, it doesn't feel like it's enough. And as somebody at our church says, you know, prayer and potatoes. You need to, it's good to have the prayer and that, but you need some practical input as well.
Absolutely.
You know, whether that's counselling, you know, somebody to talk to, friends and family, all these things work together with the prayer. Sometimes the answer to our prayers is sometimes the practical stuff that God will
the
provide.
Practical things, yes, for sure.
So,
absolutely.
You know, thank you for sharing all of that. But on that note, you know, we're going to finish it off here.
Thank you.
Thank you to everybody that has been listening. I know you're not listening live, but you're listening now. Thank you for your time, and we'll put some links in the show notes for additional help, particular links to the British Heart Foundation, and maybe some sort of bereavement counselling agencies that may be able to assist those of you that may be going through something similar. So thank you so much, and good night, or good morning, or good afternoon, whatever time you're listening to this. Have a great day. God bless you. And thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have been impacted by any of the contents of this conversation, then please do reach out to your pastor or any of the counsellors that are in your church. If, however, you don't belong to a church, then we do have some links in the show notes that you may want to refer to and find some help that way. Thank you so much. God bless you.